Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning to all the audience from University Technology Mara. And I believe that we also have the audience from the University of Cuenca. Hola, buenas noches, or good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for joining our webinar series. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our webinar today, let us recite Kitab Al-Fatiha. Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Hi, my name is Nora Ayu Ahmad Uze, the moderator for today's session. I'm very pleased to see you here and welcome all of you to the Faculty of Information Management webinar series 2021. For your information, this webinar is available through FB Live at facebook.com/UiTMFPM. Just a little reminder before we get started, if you have any question during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat box and I will bring them up during the Q&A session after the presentation ended. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is organized by Center of New Emerging Technology Research for Information Science, also known as CENTRIS, and supported by the Faculty of Information Management, UiTM Puncak Perdana Campus. This webinar will discuss about learning analytics, and the topic of today's presentation is NoteMyProgress version 3, supporting self-regulated learning in online or hybrid contexts. Well, before the presentation begins, let me introduce our guest speaker, Dr. George Maldonado. Dr. George Maldonado is a professor and researcher at the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Cuenca, Ecuador. He earns his PhD in Engineering Sciences from the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile. He is the coordinator for Latin America of the LALA community and has promoted the creation of a network of more than 250 researchers from 80 Latin American institutions and carrying out the development of the first 3 learning analytic conferences in Latin America. He expert in field of MOOCs and learning analytics. He works on scientific advances that seek to improve teaching and learning through the development and application of pedagogical methodologies combined with the use of artificial intelligence. Moreover, he has more than 50 scientific articles and has been invited by several universities to give talks and lectures, include the MIT in the USA, the University of Munich in Germany, the Polytechnic University of Valencia, and the Carlos III University of Madrid in Spain. Without further ado, I would like to come the speaker to deliver the presentation. All right, Dr. Josh, the floor is yours.
So much, and good morning there, good afternoon here with everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this talk today. I want to thank the organizers for the invitation to share a little bit of the work we do and thank all those present who have taken the time to attend this talk. A special thanks also to Dr. Nora Ayu for inviting me to give this talk. First of all, to give this presentation that, as Dr. Nora said, we have entitled this NoteMyProgress, Supporting Self-Regulated Learning Online and Hybrid Context. All I want to introduce a little bit of myself and the place that I own. I am from Ecuador. Right now, I am in the Cuenca city. We are about 2,300 meters over the sea. My city is a city surrounded by 4 rivers, and my university is a university, a public one. and we have different faculties from arts, medicine, science, engineering, etc. So more or less we have 153 years from our foundation. From the academic side, I have been teaching from about 15 years in high school, also in the university in the last 10 years. And I have the opportunity also to collaborate with different universities while we have developing different projects, Erasmus project, national projects in Chile, specifically in the Pontificia Universidad Católica of Chile, where I developed my doctoral studies. And also in this project, I have the big opportunity to participate in different projects such as LALA project, Learning Analytics for Latin America, in which I can meet Dr. Nora and all of the people from your university. Also, as she had mentioned, right now I am coordinating the LALA community or Latin America community of learning analytics here in our region. More or less, we have 200 researchers from around different countries. And the main idea is start collaborating between us, developing some research, sharing data probably, and some different applications. Right now, I am working in several projects. Some of them we have finished, other ones we have started. One of them is an MOOC observatory in which we try to put Latin America in the eye of the world and try to compare what is happening regarding these kind of technologies against the rest of the world. And we discover, for example, that in Europe they produce four or more MOOCs, and here in Latin America we only develop only one MOOC, more or less. So also we developed an same project in Ecuador that we have called Observatorio MOOCs, and also I am developing different kind of projects regarding, for example, the design, the creation, and evaluation of learning objects from a different perspective, not a technological one, more from the teacher side, trying to give them the tools in order that people can bring and can develop their own ideas without the necessity to have a big teams of production or post-production or for make e-learning. Right now, after we have finished the LALA project, we start developing a new initiative, which I am going to share with you this morning, that combines technology plus different methodologies of active learning, specifically the flipped learning, and we have integrated this with the learning management system, Moodle, that we have used, and we are trying to continue making some research with a French project in which I am participating right now, that is called LASER, Learning Analytics for Blended Learning, and we expect to share with you the good news about our research when probably at the end of this year. So more or less this is who I am. More or less this is what I am doing. I'm on the engineering faculty in Universidad de Cuenca in Ecuador. But right now I want to know who are behind this screen this morning. I want to connect with you, and I want to invite you to start and make this little activity in order to know more about you. So please try to connect to this application. Please write www.googleclap.com, and please with a backslash put this code in the application, please. And I want to make a little few questions about you, the place you are right now, and also if you have more or less knowledge about learning analytics and what you know about learning analytics in order to provide specific things or go more deeper in some points during my presentation. So I am change my screen, and please feel free. Great. We have two people connected right now in the activity. We are going to wait for a while, 30 seconds more or less, a minute, in order that people can join to this activity. Also, if you have a cell phone, you can take a picture of the QR code and also to go into these applications to make this more or less participative. So, in the meantime, I want to comment also that we are developing in Latin America, and we are trying to connect different people from diverse parts of the world also through Solar. That is the main institution that is doing learning analytics in the world. And also, they are organizing the LAC, that is a main conference in learning analytics knowledge. And it's important to share with you that every year they are organizing different conferences and also summer schools that is very interesting for people that is doing some research or developing probably their doctoral studies or something like that. Also, I want to invite you to the 4 Lala conference. We are going to hold this conference, this conference in a virtual mode. It will be carried in October. So after August 15, you can send your contributions to the conference. Okay, let's start with this activity. And I want to know from which city or country are you connected today this morning. Please share with me in which city are you in your country, and let me know in order to see where are you right now. I hope everybody could connect to the application. Also, this is the main link, the direction in which you can connect. So let's wait. Okay, people from Malaysia, it's great, it's great. And I know that we have 13 hours of difference between here in Ecuador and the place in where you are. Okay, thank you for your answers. Great. So I have Malaysia, Salam. I hope I can pronounce well the names. Okay. After that, please tell me your names. Tell me your names. I want to know who are joining this morning with us. Please tell me your names. Okay, Nisam, great. Ayuni, great. Good morning, Nora, great. Good morning. It's great to be with you this morning. Fantastic. Okay, and finally, I want to know if you have some knowledge about what learning analytic is. Probably yes, if you are working in learning analytics, or tell me no if you are not doing nothing about learning analytics, and probably this is your first contact with the topic, or probably you have heard something but you don't know specifically what is and what is not learning analytics. So feel free and tell me. Okay, most of you think you have heard something about learning analytics. Okay, great. And finally, please tell me, what do you currently do? You are a bachelor student, probably you are a graduate student, a teacher, a researcher, director that takes some decisions based on data, hope that, or you have other dedication. Great, we have teacher, researchers, good. In other opportunities, we have also bachelor students or also graduate students. So it's great to know that. Okay, I have people with other dedication. Great. And we have teacher, researchers, and people with different dedication. Thank you so much for your answers. And I will back again to the presentation. And I want to start this morning with this talk. And more or less, we saw the face-to-face education during this COVID-19 pandemic. To begin with, I really like to place this image because it really reflects the look of the professors that March 13 of 2019 when at my university they gave us the news that everything was closed and we were going to go to teach online. Many of us didn't know how we were going to face this new challenge of teaching behind a computer screen, and many doubts and concerns appeared in those days. So this is more or less my face when I realized that now I am going to teaching online. So how do we live this sudden experience? More or less, here I would like to use an analogy of how we experience this sudden change with this history or story of fixing the plane in mid-flight. The situation more or less is this. We are in Cuenca in Ecuador and we have to travel to another part of the world, specifically to Madrid to Spain, and we have many passengers on our plane, which will be our students. And the captains of the plane are us. So we are here, very happy. We have here our students, they are our passengers. But in the middle, in the flight, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, one of the plane's engines is damaged. And they tell us that as captains, we must fix the plane's engine in mid-flight. But nobody taught us how to fix the engine and worse in mid-flight. So start trying to be carried or uh, we told all the passengers panicked and shouted. Some others were crying, others just wanted all this to end now. So probably the situation is familiar to you. So more or less this kind of online express education that we have developed is kind of trying to fix this engine in the mid of the flight. So during the situation, we find three types of pilots who directly explain that I identify with these three types of teacher. A type 1, a teacher, probably who did not suffer so much because he had his subjects of topics digitized. Lectures prepared and knew how to mediate learning with technology, and the truth has not been so bad and feel comfortable. Then we have a second type of teacher who had some video lessons and more or less they manage the learning management system. They have a PDF, a file, and they receive the task or the questionnaires using the platform. And probably they suffer a little bit more. But there is another, a type 3 of teacher who never in his life imagined that he would have to live such a situation. He was prepared to teach face to face, but never online or hybrid classes. He had a very bad time because he did not have the technological and pedagogical skills to carry out the teaching process through digital platforms. So, for this type of teacher, his role in face to face teaching was the same as in online teaching. So, many of us caused that the concept of online or hybrid classes to be associated with synchronous classes on the Zoom or WebEx or Blackboard or StreamYard platform. The teachers today made an equivalency of probably 2 hours face-to-face classes and turned them into a 2-hour monologue in Zoom. So what were the results? This caused that the most active moment of online classes to be when students say, hello teacher, bye teacher, I can hear you teacher, bye teacher. Or maybe if you have a class scheduled at 7 a.m. as I have in the morning, and you say probably, students, do you have any questions? And your students are probably sleeping very good, like this personal. So before before inside the classroom, now we could appreciate that, for example, every teacher in a face-to-face mode, probably they can observe about the interactions of the different learners, and they probably use their sense in order, for example, to observe, record, and analyze what is happening between these kids. So probably in a face-to-face mode, we can deal with these situations, and we're trying to make this improvement of the education, trying to register and trying to make a kind of research inside the classrooms. But what happened when the class grow up? And here is the teacher, and we have more or less a class about 100 to or maybe 300 students inside of class. So, how can we guide students in a personalized way, or maybe try to support them? Probably the first round are attending very good the classes. Probably people behind the first round, some are sleeping, others are drowning, probably others are chatting in the phone, and probably these people got asleep. So this is very hard for us as researchers to try to make these improvements in our large size classes. But what happened, or even so more, when we have the same number of students but behind a screen? So probably you will say, oh my God, it is very difficult because how can we deal with the activities that probably I am not seeing that my learners are doing because I cannot follow each of them? So we are very conscious that the classroom is spread. And so the classroom was extended beyond this physical space, these walls. And now learners or students learn outside the classroom. In that sense, when working with virtual platforms, there is a possibility. It's a possible to collect the traces that students leave on the platform as a result of their interactions with the course materials. So student data is now our source of information to understand how they are learning. This is done thanks to the use of the file that we call the learning analytics. And for those people who are is the first contact with learning analytics, let me introduce or explain what is or what learning analytics means. So learning analytics is the measurement, collection, and analysis and reporting what? Data about students and their subjects. So what we want to do is trying to gather information, trying to analyze this data and report this data about the learner interactions into the platforms. But what is the main objective? The main objective of learning analytics is try to understand and optimize the learning and the environments in which the learning is happening. So, with this definition, we know that learning analytics is not the same that data analysis. Sometimes people are confused regarding that learning analytics is only about data analysis, sophisticated algorithms, and some predictions and other things. But learning analytics deeper into the mind of the learners and trying to optimize the learning paths of the learners, trying to optimize these environments. So how can we see the learning analytics? More or less, this is like an artificial skeleton that increases the capacity of the teachers. As you know, probably as a teacher, I cannot deal with 300 students in my classroom on my virtual online sessions if I don't have the support of the technology. And right now or here is where we found that learning analytics is like this artificial skeleton that augment the human capabilities, or in the case of the teachers, learning analytics increases our eyes in order to see what is happening with each learner. So, going back to what I mean at the beginning, we have one expectation about what kind of learners we are expecting in online environments. So probably we expect a girl like this, that she is smiling, she has his cup of coffee to attend the online classes of George Paul probably. She was prepared with a computer or a netbook with internet connection, and also she had a cell phone with some package of data in order to make the activities or the interactive activities. So this is what we were expecting. But the thing is that the reality was very different. So we expect this, but we have is this. We have learners that are not motivated, learners that they feel alone, they feel solitary probably, and most important, they are not self-regulated. So more of the teachers expect that this kind of learners probably they have to be autonomous while they were learning. But in order to make autonomous to the learners, they have first to be self-regulated. And we have studied this such a complex process, um, has been also deeply studied in the recent years, and in fact most studies indicated that being self-regulated learner is one of the key competencies to develop in any learning environment, and mainly in digital settings where the monitoring of the students by the teacher is less intense, and it is therefore the student who must develop this ability to be able to function successfully in this kind of environments. So, self regulation is very important in online, hybrid, and also face to face learning context. So, for those of you who are probably saying, so what is self regulated learning? Self regulated learning or self regulation is defined for many authors as the ability of the students to initiate metacognitive, cognitive, affective, motivational, and behavioral processes in order to take actions to achieve their learning goals and persevere until they succeed. So, under the view of the Pindrich author, this is an author that we choose in order to see how they define this self-regulated learning model. He explains that also self-regulated learning could develop in three iterative phases. One of them is the planning, the other one is execution, and the other one is reflection. So, accordingly, also to these phases, some author states that during the execution and reflection, learners and people develop three types of cognitive strategies, metacognitive strategies, and probably these resource management strategies. Connective strategies refer to the activities that learners use in the acquisition, storage, and retrieval of information. Metacognitive strategies refer to those activities carried out by learners to monitor and reflect on their learning process in order to achieve a stated objective. And resource management refers to those activities that students or learners undertake to manage their learning environment and the resources provided. For example, try to avoid to start WhatsApping or doing Facebook while you are studying. So, in recent years, and different studies that we have carried out, we have saw that there are key self-regulation strategies that allow learners to develop correctly in digital environments. So, also under the Barnard this is another important author. Barnard and his colleagues define these 6 key strategies related to self-regulated learning. That kind of strategies are connected to the success of learners in different contexts. For example, one of those is environment structure. That is, try to organize your digital learning environment to have the necessary tools. The other one is that we call or refer to goal setting. That is basically to establish learning goals clearly. Then we have time management, and time management is very important for learners to adapt it to each of the objectives and work according to the time that we have. Also, we have, for example, the help-seeking strategy that also is very important to know how to ask for help, and also when it's needed and where to look for it, probably either into looking for information into the internet or try to connect with the source of information for seeking some kind of help. Then we have also another strategy that is the task strategy. And it's more or less to plan well what are the strategies to developing work on the learning objectives. And the last one, and finally, we have self-evaluation. That means that know how to self-evaluate or to be able to advance in studies. So we have taken these 6 learning strategies and we start doing some kind of research. But what does the science say about self-regulatory competencies in digital environments? We want to go deeper into what learners are doing behind the learning platforms. And in this context, we have developed several studies, or we have carried out several studies in order to understand the characteristics of the self-regulated learning, the behavior of the self-regulated learners and different kind of learners in digital platforms, and we start doing some kind of interventions in order to know how we can support learners in the self-regulated learning strategies that they develop during the or facing their learning process. So we start with this first approach, trying to understand the characteristics of the learners, and we develop one first study in which we use some questionnaires or some surveys using data from 6 MOOCs and about more or less 4,000, almost 5,000 students. So we run here a questionnaire, a validated questionnaire, in order to understand what the learners believe that they are doing during the process of self-regulation. And we ask for them, and in this picture, for example, we can see the 6 strategies that I mentioned before. And for example, this is regarding the education of the people that answer our survey. And we found that, for example, people that have a highest degree, they have a more high self-regulated profile. So in this sense, we saw that people, when they are trying, for example, or they are passing from high school to the university, probably the metacognitive function is developed by the teacher. But in the university, this figure of metacognitive guide disappear, and are the learners the responsible to make this metacognition by themselves. So we found that obviously, for example, people that has a bachelor or are professional, or maybe they have a master or a PhD, they report highest levels in every of these strategies. So, reader training, greater self-regulation profile. Also, we found that if the course of the topic of the course is more relevant to work, the people also reports a high self-regulation profile. And also, people that believe that they are capable of achieving their objectives, also they were more regulated. So also we found different things additionally. For example, that women develop or report highest help-seeking strategies in comparison, for example, with the men. So we discover more or less what are the characteristics of the learners using this kind of survey. But one thing is what learners said that they are doing, and other thing is what really learners are doing into the platforms. So we decide to study here what is the behavior of the learners into the digital platforms. So here we start using learning analytical methods in order to make these two studies. The first study, we try to understand and see what are the learning paths that the most successful learners are doing into the platform. And also in a second study, we were interested in seeing which strategies were the most effective and was related with the behavior of the learners. So using different techniques of process mining, we start trying to draw the learning paths that the learners perform into a MOOC course. And here, for example, we have a process map in which I will explain what we are seeing. So this is, for example, and we try to measure the activity into the platform of the learners based on what we call the sessions. So the people or learners begin the session, and after that in a MOOC we have to make components. One of them are the video lectures, another one are the assessments. So here, for example, we see a pattern or this kind of behavior in learners. They start or begin a session. After that, they probably go there to begin to start a video lecture, and probably after that, they end the session. Other learners, for example, begin a session, then start, for example, seeing a video lecture. Then, without finishing the video lecture, they try to pass an assessment, and probably after that, they end the sessions. Other, for example, go to review an assessment, then trying to make an assessment, go to see a video lecture and that they start seeing in the past, but now they complete. They try to make an assessment, and probably they pass the assessment, and after that, they end the session. So here we have a process map that we call an spaghetti map, or kind of, because we saw a lot of things. So what we did here is try to use an algorithm that we call clustering algorithm that try to associate learners with the same path of learning in order to characterize the learners based on their learning. So what we found here is three types of learners that they were doing different things. For example, the first one that we have called the comprehensive learners. Those learners are who follow the learning path or the instructional design that the learner proposed in the course. So this is the perfect learner that we expect in the course. Then we found a targeting learners or a strategic learners. They only, for example, carry out the necessary activities to take the course. And we found that this kind of learners, for example, were working only with assessments. They didn't took any of the video lectures. They try to certificate their learning. And then we have another kind of learners, the explorer learners, that we call more or less a chaotic learners because they present different kind of interactions. So let's say that we match what learners said with what learners they are doing. So in this mixed methods methodology, we start trying to make the third step, that is to provide some interventions in order to see how we can change the behavior of the learners into the platform in order that they can self-regulate their learning. So we want to support self-regulated learning strategies in our learners. So we conducted a first new study making an intervention. In this study, we use one MOOC, one control group, and one experimental group. This intervention lasts 15 days. And what we want to do here is to recommend or to say on other learners some effective self-regulated learning strategy that successful students are using during the course. So we start saying, for example, every day through the Coursera platform, hey, learner, don't forget, for example, to manage very good your time. Use the Pomodoro technique in order to avoid procrastination. The second thing, hey learner, set your goals and remember to make a check if you accomplish your goal this day. Another one, for example, hey learner, we have seen that successful learners, for example, they prepare their environment and in a place that is with silence, turn off your cell phone and no distractions. So we start telling these things to the learners, but we obtain is this. Telling students what they could do is not enough to change their behavior in the course. So we fail in this intervention, but the interesting thing that this study was published in Open Skate conference and was the first time that I saw that a negative result was published in a conference. But okay, some people say that from the errors also people learn. So we learn from this error, from this mistake in our study, and go to another study. And we say, okay, so if telling the people that what they have to do is not effective, so what happens if we start using visualizations in order to see if they has better engagement or performance in the course? So we make another intervention with two MOOCs in the engineering faculty with a control and experimental group. We run this experiment in 6 weeks of interventions. And right now, sorry, yeah, it works. So we were very happy because we saw that students that use this visualization or this dashboard, really they had better engagement and performance in the course. So after that, during the LALA project or Learning Analytics for Latin America project, we developed this first tool that we have called NoteMyProgress. That is a learning analytic tool that is supporting the 6 self-regulated learning strategies, but only from the side of the learner for the Coursera platform. After that, we realized that most of the teachers and learners use this learning management system called Moodle. So what we did is start doing in Moodle this version of NoteMyProgress, and we developed the version 2 of this tool. But right now, in this moment, in the past 2 months, we have developed a new tool that we have called Flip My Learning. That is probably I call the son of Not My Progress. Not My Progress is his father, probably. And this is the version 3, but it is oriented for the teacher and also for the learners. And here I want to share with you some of the tool and what is the tool doing. Right now we are using this tool in our learning management system, and as you can see my screen, for example, we have this course of basic informatics that we are running this semester. We have this all of the planification, and here is the plugin that we have called Flip My Learning. So Flip My Learning has this menu, so in which, for example, we can configure the weeks and set goals. And for example, this is the teacher view, and you can see that for each week that start in this specific day and end in this day, we plan and we said how many times we expect that the learner work in this module, for example. So this module in Moodle is the welcome to the basic informatics. In week 2, for example, we need that the learners work with the begin module, the academic module 1, that is basic concepts, and the basic concept, the tutorial. So here we have, or we expect that the learners work about 2 hours. So we, in the hybrid or online context, we made this planification to measure, for example, or also the academic change in hours, and we help to learners to set their goals. So in other menu, we have also this big picture of about how many learners we have, how many resources we have, and also we can see here the amount of the quantity of resources that we have each month for each week. Sorry. So for example, in week 2 I have 16 resources. In week 3 I have 3 resources. Week 4 6 resources, etc. And also I can see, for example, the sessions that every week the learners are doing. So for example, I can see that on April and May, people is working very hard between week 2 and week 3. And also I can, for example, track the progress of the learners, the number of sessions, and the amount of time invested here. So we have this big picture in order to follow and has, for example, these variables in order to gain some insights about what is happening with my course. After that, for every week, we have also, for example, the time invested by the learners. So probably the teacher said, in this week, the week 15, learners have to expend more or less 2 hours of their time using and working with the materials. But really what learners did on average is to expend 26 minutes. And if I go to another week, probably they will expend more minutes or less minutes. But what we have here is the comparisons between what the teacher said that the learners has to work and the real time into the platform that the students are doing their learning. So also we have characterized, for example, the learning sessions. So most of our students work in chunks of sessions that last less than 30 minutes. And this is probably the part of the tool that I love very much, because here in Moodle I can see which people of which learners send, for example, the tasks on time. So here I have the people that they didn't they didn't send the task on time. So I can, for example, make an intervention and start writing here a message and send to them, and they will receive this message and say, oh, my teacher is writing to me, so I have to send the homework, for example. And after that, for example, if I move to another week, probably I can filter the different activities, task evaluations, and for example, can filter also. I can see who accomplished the task and who is missing also the task. So more or less, this is what the tool is doing. Also, we have this, for example, view of the learner in order to see different kind of evaluations, and we can have, for example, the best grades, the worst grades, the average grades, people that is distributed along these grades. And also, what we are trying to do here is try to make some predictions of learners, and we set two kind of learners that are working very good in the classroom, and I can see, for example, like a counseling system to see, for example, this learner, he's developing very good, he is doing all of the activities that I propose, and probably if I move to another group, I can see that maybe this learner, for example, he is not working, and probably if I review the resources, I saw that in some weeks probably they don't have a go into the different resources. He has no accesses, for example. So I can start doing some interventions in order to prevent the learner's failure and probably try to engage them into the platform. So more or less, this is this tool that we have called Flip My Learning, because it also supports active learning, flipped learning specifically. And right now we are trying to go this tool to a new version 4, in which we are trying to include artificial intelligence and some more sophisticated algorithms in order that the learners and the teachers can have more information about how they are developing in during these courses. So this is our tool, and yes, this is more or less how it looks. And with this, I want to finish my talk in order that we have the time. And if you want to use this tool is free. It's open. This works as a plugin for Moodle, so we can share with you this tool if you want to start using. Probably we can translate into your language this tool. That is possible because we designed the plugin in order that you only define some keywords, and we use a separate file so we can transform and translate the tool for French, for Spanish, Portuguese, for any kind of language. So I want to end this talk, and I want to say thank you all of the people that joined in this morning with us, and thanks for your time. For me, it's an honor to share with you this little bit about my work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Josh, for giving such informative and interesting presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the question and answer session. If you wish to ask a question, you can simply type your question into the chat box and I will read it out loud. Okay, while waiting, so George, while waiting for the question from the audience, I would like to hear your opinion about one thing. As we all know, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the universities has urgently transformed their teaching and learning from face-to-face to online setting. Basically, we have dealing with this teaching and learning for almost 2 years now. However, we found that there are students are not able to independently manage their learning. In other words, they're not able to develop their own self-regulation skills. As you found in your research, there are several groups of students like comprehensive, explorer, and also selective learner. And my question is, what is the trait or attribute of this comprehensive learner, or we can say the ideal learner, that makes them able to develop their own self-regulation skill, and they are able to learn by their own and what makes them capable to do it. You get it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have a little interruption, but the question. Yeah, first of all, thank you for your question. And why is first, people, for example, in at the university in the first years, probably some of them are regulated, other ones are not regulated. And the reason is that because, for example, here in Latin America, 12 years before, we have a metacognitive function of the teacher. And the teacher said or guide us in order to we accomplish or we succeed in our goals. For example, the teacher said, "Okay, boys and girls, open your book in the page 5. George, read the first paragraph, please. John, for example, read the second paragraph. Then we can make the exercise 1, the exercise 2. We have only 15 minutes for this activity." So more or less, this is the function of the teacher in the first years of a learner. But when they jump to the university, probably they expect that in the first year, they continue doing this task of metacognitive thing. So probably the teachers in Latin America, probably in your context also, we expect more autonomy from the learners. So we probably go to the classroom, we teach our class, probably we send some exercises to the learners, and we try to test them the next class. But probably the learners don't know how to deal, for example, with this big amount of information that probably in 2 hours we transfer to the learners. So here is where we can start supporting self-regulated learning strategies in learners. So first of all, take this in mind. We can, for example, go settings, try, for example, to divide this big amount of information in several chunks of information in order also, for example, that inside the class, not only we dedicate time for transferring information, but also activities or try to introduce active learning in order that they can assimilate this information and produce knowledge into the classroom. Where is the place in which they can make some mistakes and not outside when they are in their houses, and probably they don't have has help. And regarding the other part of the question, that for example, this kind of comprehensive learners or targeted learners, we have to know that every learner in our classes has different times or different rhythm of learning. So for example, one learner is more active, another one is more theoretical, another one, for example, is more pragmatic learner. So different kind of learners needs different treatments for their learning. What I mean is, for example, we don't have to expect that if I transfer some information in my class, all of the learners will learn at the same pace at the same moment. Learning
Exactly.
is a situation that is happening inside and outside, for example, our classes. So with them, we have to teach them to set their own goals and respect their own pace and try to guide them, facilitate them this learning path in order to understand from the data what is happening with the learner. So targeting learners are different from comprehensive learners because one of them they want to follow the learning path, but the other one has other objectives.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. George. So basically, we as a lecturer, we need to assist our student in order to set their own goals and also guide them throughout the learning processes. And also the student themselves, they need to be able to be responsible in their learning in terms of they need to have the time management, they have to develop their skills in terms how to be independent in their own learning, right? So, well, Dr. Josh, we have several questions here. So let me read the question from Muhammad Khairul Nizam Zaini. So hi George, hi Dr. George, I have a question. Why would we want to track all this data? Is that to help the students, or is it more likely for a teacher to alter their learning plan? And if that the case, how we can alter it tailored to each student?
Thank you, Muhammad, for this question. It's a very interesting question. And first of all, why would we want to track all of this data? It's very important, as I mentioned, that the learning is not exclusive of the session class. Also, for example, if we use a hybrid mode or extended learning mode, people is learning also behind this platform, behind this learning management system. So in this way, tracking all of this data from the platform let us to see, for example, what class is doing while there is not facing the teacher in the same place. I mean in a synchronous mode. So first of all, it is great to also have this data in order that the teacher, for example, gain some insights about what he can do to support learners. So here I want to connect with the second part of your question. If I don't know, if I don't have this information, or if I don't have this analytical dashboard in order that I can see all of the information of the learners' processes, probably as a teacher, I cannot deal with this amount of information that the learning management systems, for example, are storing on their databases. As a teacher, probably I need or I require skills for programming, for statistics, for some different things. But teachers, they don't have this kind of skills right now. So let people do help with their dashboards in order that you can consume and use this process data. So in this way, for example, I can see a big picture and try to see different kind of groups of learners and try to tailor, for example, the feedback for each group of learners in a very personalized way. Because we need, or the main objective of gather or track all of this data is to gain more insights about how we can support, for example, the learner, depending of the learning path. And also, for example, if I appreciate or I see in a dashboard that the learner, for example, is going from a lecture, then to assessment, and he's trying or repeating the assessment several times, probably as a teacher, if I have this picture, I can go to the learner and say, hey, what is happening? I am seeing that you are trying to do this assessment, but you are failing. Probably you need some guide, you need some help, or you have some questions. How can I help you? So right now we are developing a kind of chatbot that is an assistant that is working on learning management system model that is more responsive and tailored to the behavior of the learner. We use as a base, for example, this dashboard, these measurements that we have done, for example, about the engagement, the time that the learner are using the platform, for example, the number of times of access that they have, the task that they complete or they finish. And the bot will consume this tracked information and make some kind of recommendation. So this will be the next step in order to try to give some feedback more tailored to specific learners.
Okay, good. So we have another two questions from Mazwani Ayu Mazlan. The first question is about what skills are expected for instructors to have in order to use online learning platform.
Okay, thank you, Maswani. Hope to pronounce good your name.
Yeah,
So,
it's
okay, so regarding skills that are expected right now for the instructors, I think that with this COVID-19 and pandemic situation, probably we have to improve our skills as a teachers, not only from the technological side, but also from the pedagogical one. In the case, for example, of many of the universities, most of the teachers are contracted because they have, sorry, the knowledge about a specific topic, but nobody taught them how to be a good teacher. So when we are passing the years, in 5 years, 10 years, we start slowly begin to realize what is the teacher, what be a teacher means. So from this point, what we found in our university as the people are kind of technocentric. What I mean is that people believe that only using technological tools make the learners start, for example, or make the learners learn. So this is a big mistake. In the other side, if you ask for some skills, I think that right now it's important that every teacher inside their classes has the skills of a researcher from the point of view to make this improvement of the results and the learning of the from the students. And as a second skill, probably to know how to facilitate, for example, or empathize with their learners in order to try to support them not only in the technological or in the content side, but also in the motivational part. So we found that behind the skills, we have to also support the learners probably in the psychological side also. So with this pandemic, we right now we are like an army knife, and we have to do a lot of skills. But probably right now the technological skills are the ones that we require that the teachers, for example, are be able to manage. And for example, try to make this translation from face-to-face spaces into, for example, online spaces. How can I transform this face-to-face activity with a tool into online activity? What are the pros? What are the cons, etc.?
okay, great. Okay, our last question. How assessment and scoring are created and how they are ensured to match university requirement?
Okay, if I understand regarding the assessment and scoring, how they are created, probably I mean that, for example, are the grades that the learners needs to accomplish, for example, to succeed in the course, and how this scoring, for example, match with the university requirements. So here we have a big problem in our university because, for example, we are using assessments in two moments of the semester, in the half and interim, and the learners, for example, score them over 100 points, and they have to obtain at least 60 points to pass the course. But 50 of these points are obtained in two exams. One exam at the middle of the semester and another exam at the end of the semester. But I think that the measure the learning with exams or assessment is not good, and even in online environments, because I think that we have to try to measure all of the learning process from the formative side, not from the summative side. So I think that with this pandemic and with these online classes, we have to deal with this situation that is really that is taking this exam the person that is doing his own effort, or maybe I am worried about that the learners are cheating, for example, in online assessment or exam. So in this situation, COVID-19 exposed this scoring or assessment system that the universities has created. And sometimes I feel that the assessment is going in this direction, and for example the requirements of the university or the abilities are going in the other direction. So probably we need to rethink what we are doing with our assessments at the universities and rethink about what is most important to measure the learning of the learner using these assessment tools, or probably expect that the learners learn during the course. For example, I ask to my students, what are your goals on this subject, for example? And most of them say, I want to pass the topic, I want to pass the exams, I want to pass the course. But only a few say, I want to acquire and learn in this course. So probably in my context, most of the learners are prepared to pass the exams, but they don't have learned. They are not developing skills and knowledge that connect the university to the professional world.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. George, for answering those questions. Great. Thank you, everyone. Finally, we come to the end part of our webinar. I would like to say thank you again to Dr. George for the informative and interesting talk. And to all the audience, I appreciate your active participation. Hopefully, this webinar will be beneficial for everybody. Before you leave, please make sure you have filled in the attendance form that available in the chat box. Thanks again for joining us today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye. Assalamualaikum.